part of the group. It's a big commitment to get across Australia and be all in one place at one time. But the blessings that we have from living in this country bring us the challenges of distance. So that's what we work with. This is the room that will become our little cosy home for the next couple of weeks. And so most of you have kind of figured out the basics. The toilets are through the door, either through these doors or out and down the passage just across here. You will have noticed that I'm using a microphone and that there's a camera. We will be recording what happens in the room, but only for us. The videos and the audio recordings are not for anybody else's use. They are for you to be able to review what we've done, or for anyone who misses time to be able to catch up and do stuff at home. So if you have any desperate objection to being caught on camera, let us know and we'll try and avoid you. But hopefully for the purposes of all our learning, you'll learn to be comfortable with that recording happening. When we have discussions, we'll throw this device around the room because it's designed to bounce and to be caught and dropped. And it will capture your comments and questions so that when whoever's teaching or leading the discussion answers, it will actually make sense to those who watch it later on. So as you can see, it doesn't kind of need to be really close to your mouth, but if we can all kind of share in the remembering to chuck it around to capture those comments, we'll all appreciate it later on. So we've come to learn. And for some of you, that might evoke memories of being in school, and that might be happy, or it might be not so happy. But what we do here is bound to be different. It's a different way of learning a lot of things. Although we've said there's a textbook, we don't spend a lot of time on book learning. A lot of it is learning to become a textbook. So if you find that you're having expectations that seem to be challenged in terms of how the learning is occurring, then that's normal. Any time we encounter something different, it can feel a little uncomfortable or unfamiliar. If it's something that bothers you, come and talk to one of us or talk to one of your colleagues, because what we're looking for is a way to learn easily and comfortably. Those of us who will sit out the front here are not here to teach you. We're here to facilitate your learning. And so that's an experimental process for all of us as we get to know what works for each person in each moment. So we're going to need feedback, we're going to give feedback, we're going to keep exploring together, and hopefully we'll have a fantastic time. So I would like to hand you over to your primary teachers for this segment. Susan Hillier and Zoran Kovic are your educational directors, and they're going to help you learn all kinds of things that you didn't know you didn't know. So,
everybody, you might, thank you. Now, is that a good sound? Might slightly done slight bit. How about that? Try that. How's that up the back? Still a little tiny echo. Okay. So we've been thinking a lot about what the opening remarks might be for beginning of this next 3 years together. Some of you it's 3 years, some of you are coming for a taste. And there's so much that we could say to welcome you. firstly, our welcome is to pay respects to the land that we meet on. So I'm reliably informed by firstly Wikipedia, and then Jenny confirmed that we're meeting on the land of the Wurundjeri people. So we pay our respects to the elders of the Wurundjeri people and the people themselves, past, present and future. So what does welcoming in this room mean? We are here. It's a pretty intense journey, as Jenny said, and we were thinking, what do we say? And I said, what can I tell you? And then Zoran can tell you that makes this welcome meaningful. And it's kind of hard. Like, what is the most important thing to say? So we came back to actually, what's the Feldenkrais method about? It's about what our personal experience is and how that then ripples out and impacts on the people that we meet with, that we work with, that we live with, that we encounter. So if I reflect on my personal experience of the Feldenkrais method, and you know, I haven't done the maths about how long ago did we start our training. Quite a long time ago. I was, you know, in my teens. I can crack that joke out every time and it's still not funny. But really, the training for me, when I did it, we started in 88. 88, yeah. Was probably, definitely the best investment that I've ever made, because it was an investment in myself. And that can seem quite self-indulgent in a way. So some of your friends and family might think you're being a bit self-indulgent coming here to lie on the floor. They don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're doing. However, I'd like you to see this as a really wise investment of your time and resources and your energy and your attention. Why was it what's the returns been for me? I'm giving you a financial metaphor, which is ironic because I'm absolutely shit at finances. But anyway, the investment for me has been returning in ways that I never imagined. So it's obviously a long time since we graduated. John and I were in the same training here in Melbourne at Albert Lake. It pops up all the time. You know, Feldenkrais has become part of my life, and I don't want to sound like I'm some kind of disciple or, you know, that my life has been taken over by this religion. It's not like that. But there's something pervasive and quite marvellous about the sensing and the thinking and the feeling and the doing that you learn in this room and together that will impact on your life in ways that at the moment you might not be able to imagine. So you might come in with expectations about what this investment will return for you, and they may be true. And I would guarantee that there'll also be some returns on this investment that you won't even imagine. Can I give you examples of the way it has? Obviously, I've made a career out of this method, in part. I don't work full-time as a Feldenkrais practitioner. However, everything that I do is infused with ideas of the method, ideas around how I learn, how do I tackle learning, how do I tackle a new situation, how do I tackle a new encounter. In fact, how do I tackle talking with you for the first time this morning. And this is a fairly rare occurrence that I'm actually nervous. So how do I deal with my nervousness? You know, I talk a lot, actually talk a lot. I also talk a lot in front of people. So for me to feel nervous is a novel kind of situation. How do I deal with that? I think about, I sense about, I feel about, and work with the concepts that you'll learn in this room of how I manage that nervousness. That's a small example. How do we set about establishing the curriculum for this training program? We come back to the basic principles of the Feldenkrais method. So you'll start to get a sense of how that can impact on your life, how it can impact on your relationships. I think you'll agree. There's not many words that I can say now that will kind of encapsulate the method for you, other than to say, as I hopefully have illustrated, this investment in yourself, this taking the time out to get to know yourself first, in order to be the person that you can be and find the potential in yourself and the awareness, to then be that person with the people that you encounter. So this will be mirrored in the training program. This first year, that's definitely this first segment, is very intensively looking inward. And we'll invite you to look outward a little bit. But this journey inward, hopefully we'll signpost it well for you so you don't get lost in that inward exploration of yourself. So I'm hoping that you're up for that. You know, and you'll find out bits of yourself that you will welcome, and find out bits of yourself that you're not so fond of, and maybe learning how to be fond of those bits as well. Zoran,
Yeah. Okay.
what would your opening remark like to be?
Can I nibble it?
Yes.
Okay.
I led you astray, because when we use this downstairs, there's another training program happening downstairs, CS1, your CS2. And we had this box for 2 weeks in July, and it is fun. Just warning you, it is fun. But I said to Zoran, you have to hold it up. And of course, Jenny was exactly the opposite. You configured it. Narian, our tech guy, has got it working so that you can hold it down. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And yeah, I just found out about this, and it's fun. And I thought you had to hold it right up here. So I said, oh, it's like a marshmallow. What I do know, having read your applications, is that each one of you come here with a different motivation. And there's some cross-links in your motivation, and there's some very clear directions in your motivations. And I guess what will be, I anticipate for all of you, quite exciting, is that as you encounter each other, you'll find out the very many different motivations that you come here with. And through those encounters, you'll see how broad a sweep and how broad a vision this method can hold, which is really important. The motivation that brought me to the Feldenkrais method was quite naive in a kind of a way. I wanted to revolutionize the field of dance training. There's a laugh there. Because I saw that in the field of somatics, in Feldenkrais method itself, there was a way of addressing the way that we approach movement that was so not there in general life. And that has expanded and in all sorts of different directions. So whatever your motivation is now, keep track and see how that changes as you go, because it will change. But also, maybe there's part of your initial motivation that you can hold on to as something precious, as a reminder. This is why I came here. And maybe my idea of how it works changes. So that'd be nice. So like Susan, I'm excited to be here. Yeah, so if you want an internal vision of what it's like in there at the moment, that's what it's like. And one thing I would like to say is, and this is building on Jenny's comment, that we're not really teachers in the classical sense. Yes, we have experiences between us. All the staff have years of experiences that you encounter. But that doesn't mean that your experience counts for nothing. Matter of fact, the more our experiences can come and meet like this, the richer the dialogue's going to be. So bring what you have, we'll bring what we have, and in that whole mix, there's going to be a lot of rich learning. So that's the way to cook this. All right. Thanks.
Great. So we might do a bit more orientation kind of talk, just so that you get a bit of a sense of how we're going to start the journey. Firstly, like any system, there is a bit of a structure to the system of the training program and the staff that Jenny's assembled. So Jenny, who you've met via email and via various encounters, is the administrator, the owner of this training program. So she has oversight over the logistics and the running and all the heavy duty background stuff. So any questions that you have around that, for Jenny, you know, around the timing and all that sort of stuff. Another role within the training program, as Jenny's mentioned, the educational directors, and Zoran and I are sharing that role. So sometimes it's done by one person, sometimes it's done by two. We wanted to do this together. And we have oversight for the educational side of the training program, the whole training program. So the questions around curriculum and content and the sort of specific learning aspects are our responsibility. And you can come to us to talk about that as well. Now, Jenny's also complicated. Oh no, I won't jump into her second role. She's got many hats. So we've got the administrator, we've got the educational directors sharing those two kind of portfolios. Each segment, you will have a trainer who carries the responsibility for the content for that segment. Now, often we co-teach in the training role. This week, we will kind of be co-teaching, though on the books for accreditation purposes, I'm the trainer for this week and next week, and Zoran will be the trainer for the third week. And then in the weeks that come, as you're continuing, there'll be new trainers, and we've got quite a fantastic pool of trainers in Australia. Some of you might have met them. So you'll be meeting people like Julie Peck, who's teaching downstairs with CS1 at the moment. Stephanie Spink, who's another Melbourne practitioner. Zoran and I and Stephanie and Julie are the 4 Australian trainers. And Jeff Haller, actually I didn't mention, which is very naughty. He is sort of a distant educational director. So Jeff Haller he lives in Seattle in the US. He's highly experienced. So he did the Amherst training with Feldenkrais, which was in the 80s, 1980, 81, started in 1980. So we're delighted to have him in the background, and you'll meet him next year. He'll be coming out to be the trainer for a segment next year. So they're the 5 kind of trainers that you'll meet. And this is done very purposefully, that we have a variety of trainers, so that something that Zoran kind of alluded to, this richness and the breadth of the method will be enlivened for you, because you'll see that all 5 of us approach the method very differently. Hopefully you'll also experience the congruence of the 5 of us. We don't contradict each other, but you will see this incredible breadth of the way that we work with the method and the way that we use it in our lives and the way that we teach you guys. So that's quite a tradition, that we have a variety of teachers. And so if one of us really gets up your nose, don't worry, because the others will... I won't go any further into the metaphor of getting something out of your nose, because that would be horrible. That'd be horrible. It's really bad with puns. Anyone listen to English. So that's the kind of structure. And the roles, so that you know kind of who to go to in that instance. Working with the trainers is often an assistant trainer, and that's the other hat that Jenny wears. So she's a busy person, and assistant trainers are, what the name suggests, is that they've gone through the accreditation process as well, and they're here to kind of float around and work with you individually as you need, so that in any given segment, and they'll be teaching and taking responsibility as well. So that's the kind of hierarchy. There may be what we call tutor practitioners. So there's something about this training program that's quite addictive, and practitioners like to come and redo trainings. And we offer that in several ways. They can just simply come and kind of lie on the floor and audit, and be here as sort of ghosts up the back. Or they can come and work as tutor practitioners. So in return for attending the training, they might give FIs and stuff like that. So you'll see various people in and out of the room. We'll try and introduce them so that there's no strangers. However, when practitioners come, they are very well prepped. This is your training. So they don't dominate. They're not allowed to touch the mic unless they get, special permission the day before via, 6 bits of paper. That's not true. This is your training. so that they, you know, they can interact up to a point, but it's, you know what I mean? That they can't dominate and start, you know, sort of getting their own personal questions answered. So that's who you might see. And Jenny's also alluded to this, the ethics of the way we run this room. Because this is a journey of inward and outward exploration, it's a very private and personal experience. And some of your personal experiences, we will invite you to share with each other. Now, that's always your choice. If there's some things you don't want to talk about, you don't have to. What we do encourage you to share your experiences, because then you start to realise, again, something that Zoran's alluded to is the richness of experience. So if you're under the illusion that what you experience is, you know, the way reality is for everybody, when you get in a small group and start sharing your experiences after a particular lesson or something, and you realise, oh, actually, do you know what? I'm not the centre of the universe. Somebody else had a different experience. That's very rich. So if you feel comfortable sharing and you can learn to share, see it as an opportunity that you are broadening the education of your colleagues in the room and broadening their worldview about how rich people's experiences can be in this process. Is that okay? Now, as Jenny said, everything's being recorded and that's private for just within this room. The conversations that we have in this room are private. However, there's a slight contradiction is that we will also encourage you to go out and talk about what you do with the people that you live with or that you work with, if that's appropriate. So what's said in the room can be shared up to a point, but you know, I'm a researcher, so I think about this from an ethics point of view. Can you de-identify the data, as it were? So that if you're relating something, a concept in here or some experiences, can you relate it to other people outside of this room in a way where they can't identify where it came from here, so that they don't say, you don't go, oh, you know, Jane from Adelaide, well, she said this and, you know, blah, 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 and isn't that amazing and whatever. It could be whatever, you know, positive, negative, doesn't matter. It's just that, you know, this was one of the stories that we heard today, one of the experiences in the room, and it's not identifiable. Does that kind of make sense? If you have that kind of sensibility around your learning here, we encourage you to share it and practice discussing this work with other people and discussing your journey as you see fit. If you can do it in a way that has that level of attention and consideration for the fact that you've been privileged to share in other people's experience. So it's not exactly Chatham House rules, it's a modification of that. But it's this kind of ethical way of dealing with the information that you've been privileged to share within here. So we would like to think that we create a really safe environment in here, because we will ask you to do some quite challenging things. Maybe even today, we might press a few buttons, who knows? Because as Jenny alluded to, learning is not always not always comfortable, right? And one of the things that you learn in here is how can you be comfortable with the uncomfortable? So this sort of transformation stuff is what is of great interest to us. So remember that when you're feeling uncomfortable and you have a feeling about that, you know, a response to that, sit with that. As Jenny said, come and talk with us if you need to. And can you be curious about your responses when they're uncomfortable? As curious as that as when you walk away feeling elated and on a high and, you know, all the happy hormones buzzing. Can you be equally curious, is what I'm saying, with all of your responses, because they are all incredibly rich. And we don't take it personally if you have a hissy fit. Funnily enough, it's happened before, really. You know, where someone's, you know, had a bit of a tanty about something that's happened in here, that's perfectly fine. So long as you own it, and we'll help you own it and help you with that. So that's probably enough to be said. Now, some of this will make no sense to people. You know, people have gone through training programs and it's just been lovely, and they walk away feeling very flexible. And they go, oh God, yeah, they talk a lot about emotions and, you know, inward journeys and stuff in the training, but, you know, I just feel flexible. That's also perfectly fine, because you get what you need out of this, at, you know, whatever level you need. So your experience is your experience, and you can be very confident that Zoran, Jenny and I and any of the other staff that come in here are not judging your experience on some kind of criteria of excellence. What we will be doing, and we'll talk a lot more about this though, is so again, Zoran mentioned this, that some people's motivations are quite different. Why you're here, you might not even know why you're here, you're just here because it felt good. And that's why I did the training program, it felt good. I felt good afterwards, yes, I feel good. I had no no ambitions to change the world, I just wanted to keep feeling good. I've lost my train of thought. So the motivations. So some people are quite clear that they are interested in pursuing this as, you know, either a new profession or an addition to their profession. And so that comes with a responsibility for us to ensure a level of competence and capability in the room. However, we're going to talk a lot more about this, how we go about gathering the evidence for this competence and capability, I hope you agree, is in a very Feldenkrais kind of fashion. So you won't get exams and tests and so on and so forth. It will be in the context of learning to evoke the best behaviour, if you like, in terms of those competencies. And how you evidence that will actually be a conversation, a very individual kind of conversation. So again, Jenny's alluded to this, you know, you might come in with expectations about learning and what, you know, that this is school and there's desks, or well, it's clearly not desks. That, you know, those kinds of anxieties around a formal learning situation. You can choose to get anxious if you like, that's fine. And there are sort of expectations at some level, which we will try and really articulate for you, so that in a way that evaluation of your competency is your evaluation, and then we can work with you with that. Is that vague enough? It's a work in progress. I wasn't going to talk about that until this afternoon, but it just popped out. What I'm saying is that we have standards. So that seems like a contradiction, that we're not judging you, but not a but, it's an and. There are some kinds of expectations if people want to practice, because we believe this is an excellent method and we would like it to stay excellent. And for new colleagues to emerge, we obviously want you to emerge knowing, you know, that you will emerge incredibly capable and proficient in this. That's the motivation, yeah? Okay, now I've got a whole lot of other little bits and pieces that I needed to say. Don't worry, we don't normally talk this much. Well, actually I talk a lot, but I'll pretend that I don't. Introduction to you, we don't need to, we won't introduce the Feldenkrais method. The schedule, as you know from Jenny's email, is 9:30 to 4:30. The actual content, particularly in this first couple of weeks, you're going to be doing a lot of ATM, a lot of awareness through movement. Everybody has done awareness through movement, yes? We've read your applications, so we know that some of you have been doing awareness through movement lessons almost as long as we have. So there's, you know, and that's neither here nor there. That's great. If you've only done 3 ATMs, that's great. We're all starting from the beginner's mind aspect this morning. There's a little kitchen kind of thing there. We'll stop for coffee breaks, for tea breaks in the morning. We'll have lunch. It will either be an hour or an hour and a quarter. So today it will be an hour, and I'll always let you know, whoever's teaching will let you know when to come back. We have a fairly long break because it's a bit intensive. And then Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday, when the break is an hour and a quarter, that's because staff will be giving individual functional integration lessons. So you will all get an individual lesson with one of us in this segment. And you'll get one, I don't know if it's every year or 2 every year. Jenny's just left the room, so I can't check, but it's something like that, 2. Okay. So there's that, talked about roles. If you miss days, this is always difficult because we have expectations around standards. one of the very crude ways of gauging that is attendance. And it is crude, you know, it's like you go to church and you get to heaven. Sorry, I've got a sister-in-law who told me I'm not going to heaven because I don't go to church. And it always, attendance records always reminds me of, who was the comedian who said, I don't have a problem with God, I just have a problem with the idea of a God who keeps attendance records. Well, we do keep attendance records because we're not God. And it is a crude way of kind of confirming that you have been here. Now, whether it confirms that you've actually participated, of course, is the moot point. If you miss days, then there is an expectation of catching it up. How you catch it up is a conversation that you have with Darren and myself. As educational directors, we have that responsibility, and we'll try and be quite bespoke about it. You know, obviously there's the recordings, there's other segments, but we'll talk more about that later. But just to know that attendance is, well, we'd like to think that you wouldn't want to miss anything because you'll feel like you're missing out. That's what we would like to happen. But we know that life gets in the way. Okay. We'll talk about the larger schedule for the 3 years much later. Content we talked about. You've got lanyards with your names on them. If you would like Zoran and Jenny, well, Jenny probably knows your names. If you'd like Zoran and I to know your names, and more importantly, you'd like to know each other's names, if you wouldn't mind wearing them for a little while, that would be useful. I know some people have a bit of an aversion to wearing name badges. If you have an aversion, that's very interesting. Maybe you'd like to work with that aversion. We can help. We've got techniques. So there's that. Now the facilities, you know, lose through that door, kitchen through there, as I said. You've all obviously found your way up here. There are more toilets downstairs in that big entrance foyer in the town hall. If you're interested, the other training is actually, when I say downstairs, it's down in the bowels. It's right down, like 2 flights down. When you come in and those stairs go down, that's where the other training is held. And we'll hopefully have a little event with them sometime next week, so that you can meet. Now they in about beginning of beginning of year 3. So they've mostly become ATM teachers. So that's where they're at, sort of about halfway through. I think that that's probably enough nuts and bolts. Unless there's any burning questions or smouldering questions. I won't, you can have a choice. Smouldering, burning, smouldering. Air conditioning, too cold? Little bit. Yes, so let us know about those sorts of things. And I'm just watching Jenny to find out where the controls are. So these sorts of things will always be very individual. No, it's your fault. That's going to go. With air conditioning, often what happens in the room is that half, you know what I'm going to say. So half the people will be sweating and the other half will be freezing, and we aiming for the 2 people in the middle who feel just right. So it's always going to be the Goldilocks. However, we can always do the consensus thing, and if the consensus, I can see people have got like sleeves on, so I would say that you might be in the majority that it's a little bit too cool. Yep. I haven't taught in this room before, so I'm kind of getting used to the ambience here as well. There is a window up the back, so if you feel like you need to look out, I can see it, it's up there. At the moment, we've oriented the room that this is the front. Sometimes we'll change because it's quite a long room. So be prepared to reorient yourself, which is a Feldenkrais kind of feature. And there are lots of places to eat. Melbourne people know Box Hill, and those of you not from Melbourne, you'll get to know Box Hill. The choice is skewed, let's say, in one direction. Good food, cheap food up the road. So those of you who came in on the train or the tram, that's sort of Box Hill Central, and there's a lot of malls and shops and eateries and whatnot. Anybody have questions about parking? Jenny answered all those things. The hour-long lunch break gives you a time to go out and have a walk. There's a little park with like a playground up that end. You know, a sort of a block, half a block that way. What else might you need to know in the breaks? Any other comfort questions you have? No. Okay. Time to do something. So what I'm going to invite you to do is to pair up. Now, there's something I was going to say, find a partner. This is a classic Feldenkrais thing. We say find a partner, and I immediately think it sounds like, you know, a life partner, find a dating partner. And I can never remember which the dating site. This is not Tinder, or is Tinder the naughty one? Which is the naughty one? Is that Tinder? Right. So it's none of those agencies. So when we say find a partner, it can strike a little bit of fear into people's hearts, because they feel like, you know, you look around and you think, oh God, no, everyone's avoiding my eyes. So again, this is just grist for the mill. These are just our reactions. It's just your self-talk about, I won't find a partner, nobody wants to talk to me, or I feel too shy, or I don't want to talk to them, or whatever reactions you are. Again, just notice them. They are what they are. You might have no idea what I'm talking about, and if you don't, that's fine. Maybe it's just my personal experience. When someone says find a partner, I go, and there's something inside go. Anyway, do that, and I'll tell you what the task is. Yeah, and now if you didn't have any anxiety, now you've got it because I put it in your head. And you might have to move, right? You know, you might actually have to leave your comfort of your mat. Okay, so with your partner, you're going to have a little rehearsal, right? Is everybody got one? And if we haven't got equal numbers, obviously 3 is fine. So this is just a rehearsal. For some people are very comfortable talking in front of the whole group, and some people not. So you're going to have a little rehearsal with each other. And the question is, you're going to tell each other, describe for your partner what your idea of a great day is. Okay, so here's the scenarios. When you wake up in the morning, you know, you have that first, you wake up in that kind of fuddle and you go, I don't know, it's this day. And you kind of review what's going to happen in the day. And when you have that review and you go, oh yeah, this is a great day. What does that day look like? What does it feel like? What does it hold? And explain that to your partner as a practice, and then I'll just give you the heads up. You'll share that with the whole group. But this is a little rehearsal. Is that all right? Okay.